So essentially, the idea of blockchain, um, I'm sure you've probably heard that it's like anonymous and it's like secure, and it's it's its incentive essentially is that it's like decentralized. But the term decentralized is probably like really vague to you because you don't really understand it because it's more of like a computer science, like a high like a like a lower level computer science like term, I guess. So I can kind of break these three terms into for you. So one of the biggest like pros about blockchain is decentralization, um, two, security, and like anonymity. So these three things are what makes blockchain like a groundbreaking technology, essentially. Um, so first things first about decentralization. Um, right now we're using a very centralized version of like the internet. So maybe let's use the internet as an example. So in today's internet, we have a very centralized internet where everything is like owned by the corporations essentially. Like for example, like the way that it works is let's use Facebook as an example. If you wanted to message a friend, just like this is the entire process of sending one message to a friend on Facebook. This entire process of just sending one message to a friend on Facebook is very um complicated, but it all happens in like milliseconds. But the entire process is very centralized. What that means is like all of the process and like all of the data is owned by the company that you're sending it to. So for example, even like your ISP, um, let's say your ISP is like AT&T, um, and here's you. We'll make you, I don't know, blue or something. Let me move everything over. So in this entire process, the way that it works is you send this thing known as like a network packet containing like let's it contains like the message that you sent. Um, it also contains I'm sure you've probably seen this syntax before. It's kind of like a list. It's just like a list of like whatever information you're essentially sending. So in this network packet, you're sending like, you know, your internet like IP, like the message and like the receiving IP, and all of this is forwarded essentially by like your ISP. And let's say your friend uses I don't know, like Spectrum, I guess. Let's say they're in like Cal Poly campus and they're using Spectrum. Friends ISP. Um, that's kind of how it works essentially. And then let's make your friend green. So this entire process is really centralized. You're depending on these three things, these three entities, these three third parties to forward your message for you essentially. Um, friend. Uh, so essentially, let's say that this is your packet right here. I'll put it into like a box. If this is your message, the way that it works is you send it to your ISP, and then your ISP goes, "Oh, you're sending it to Facebook." Um, and then they send it to Facebook, and then Facebook goes, "Oh, we know this person. They exist on Facebook. We're gonna send it to an ISP to forward it to them." So Facebook sends it to whatever closest ISP your friend is on, and then they forward it to your friend. So that's the entire process of how data is transmitted over like the internet. And this really centralized this is really centralized because you're depending on these three things to forward your message for you, and you have no like all of your data is not anonymous. It's being like whenever you forward this across, Facebook stores a copy of this on their database, and then like they forward it across. So your friend gets it, but Facebook also is also storing a copy of it, and like your ISP could store a copy of it too if they wanted to. So like not only do you not have any like anonymity and like they can read your messages and whatever you're like sending, but like you're really dependent on these services. You're dependent on, this one, and this one. If they just decide to like deny you of any service, then you're just like you're not able to use it. Like this idea of like the internet. So this relies on these third parties to forward your message for you, and it's not secure, quote unquote, because Facebook is like really bad. Like they've had a lot of data breaches over the past recent years, and there's no like anonymity because Facebook stores a copy of your message every time you send a message, and that's what blockchain solves is these three problems. And the way that it works is kind of like this. So this is the idea of a centralized version of like the internet. Now, if you imagine kind of like this is kind of how it would look like as a network. Like this process right here, this entire process would look kind of like, let me move everything down a little bit. This entire process right here can be just simplified into like one network looking kind of like this. And this is like a network view of it, centralized network, where you have Facebook at the center of everything. So Facebook is like that center part. That's why it's central. And then you have like the ISPs, and like you have multiple like ISPs pointing to Facebook. So let's just say it looks something like that. And like they're all connected to Facebook. And then let's say like this is your ISP right here. Let's say that. So, this is you. And let's say your friend is in this ISP over here. And then let's say you have a friend two over here. And then let's say you have a friend here. A friend, let's just call it three. And then friend two. Yeah. So this is kind of how like the entire like internet kind of looks like. Um, Everything is centralized towards like services like Google, Facebook, and stuff like that. Like all of the ISPs that you're using, they're just centralized towards Facebook. Like if you wanted to send a message to like your friend, like this is how the centralized internet flow would look like. But the way that it actually works is like you send a packet here to your ISP sends it to Facebook, sends it to their ISP to this friend. Even if you're sending it to this friend on the same ISP, it still has to go to the ISP and then to Facebook, and then Facebook sends it back and then sends it back to your friend. So everything is centralized around these big corporations. So they own all of your data and they own all of like of all of everything. If Facebook decides to deny you of a service, then you just can't have access to these friends anymore. Essentially, that's kind of what it's saying. But now using the idea of blockchain, um, we can remove these middlemen. Is essentially like you can just directly connect with your friend if you wanted to send a message. Here's you, and then here's your friend, and then you just directly connect to your friend and just you can just send a message directly to them. Even if you don't have a direct connection to them, you can send it to strangers that are connected to them. Let's say this is your friend's friend. Maybe you just created a new account and you don't have a connection to your friend yet, but you do have a connection to like mutual friends. Like this is a mutual friend between you and your first friend. Um, Even if you don't have this connection yet, you can send an encrypted version of the message. So I don't really know if you have any like do you kind of understand what like what the term like encryption means?
Yeah, a little bit. Hmm.
Okay. So like that idea essentially is like the message it gets hashed essentially. So like let's say if the message is I don't know, hello world, and then like the hashed message is equal to like or the correct term would be the encrypted message is like whatever this is. But the thing is you don't send the actual message with your packet. You send the encrypted message. So I'm just gonna do that. But and so inside of your message or your network packet, you're sending the encrypted message, and you say only this key, friends, um, receiving key. So let's say friend one key. Only this key can unlock it. So when you send this message to your friend's friend, which is like a mutual friend, um, even if they get this message, they don't have the right to unlock it because they don't own this friend one key. They own friend two key, if that makes sense. So that's why you can send it kind of securely because this middleman, because your friend's friend acts as a middleman to forward the message to your friend, and so you don't have to rely on things like a middle like third party services like Facebook or like ISPs. You can use like other people that are connected to you, and they'll just forward your message for you. And then or friend one owns friend one key, so they can decrypt this back to the original message. So that's kind of how a decentralized network works. And to draw a decentralized network, like as a picture, it would look more like this rather than like the previous picture where it's like really centralized towards like Facebook. It looks more like a spider web essentially. Maybe I can just find a picture of it. Decentralized networks. I don't have to draw it out. It would take too long to draw out. Copy image. Put. Oh gosh, that was a horrible image. There you go. So this is a better view of what centralized and and decentralized looks like. So decentralized looks more like this, while centralized looks more like this. Right now, the internet's really centralized, and that's really bad because we rely on these third party services and apps so much that if they decide to like deny you of service or if they just go down, then you're just screwed because then like there's no way to reach whoever you want to reach. These decentralized services means that even if this person goes down, you can still reach this person by just going here, essentially like kind of like that. Like you can take a different path. So even if this service is out of service, you're still able to reach like, for example, this person. Let's say you wanted to reach this person. Like you normally maybe you might take this path right here, like this, and then this right here. But instead you can still take this path, and then to this path. It's an alternative path, but it's still possible to reach this person without this service. And that's kind of the idea of like that decentralized part, making it like fault tolerant essentially. Um, and then to the security part now, that's that like hashed that encrypted idea. That's really secure because like nobody can unlock your data or essentially like steal your identity and stuff like that without having like your private key. That's what it's called. If they don't have this private key, which only you should own, and like normally you want to store it like physically and not like on the internet, like or like on your laptop, like locally. You want to usually store this on like a sticky note somewhere and like I don't know, stash this in that sticky note in like your vault or something. because and then whenever you want to use it, then you just go and grab it and use it. But you usually want to store your private key off of your devices essentially. So that's how you make it even more secure. Um, but yeah, and then for the anonymity part, the big part about blockchain that people really love is this anonymity part. When you're talking about users, these users don't have names, don't have emails, they don't have like I don't know, stuff like that. They have these things called private key and like public key, and that's all they have. And these are just random gibberish, essentially. They're hashed gibberish, but they're still gibberish, essentially. So there's no way to know that that John owns this public key, ASD, JKJ, whatever. And normally in this centralized internet, we need to know who's who so we can forward it to the right person. But here, you can still forward it to the correct person without needing to know their name and their email, because all you need to know is their private key and their public key. For example, if you want to send like money, that's what Bitcoin is usually used for, and Bitcoin is like the biggest blockchain use case right now. Is for a store of value. Um, like let's say John wants to send money to his wife. Let's call her Alice or something. And Alice private key. And then Alice public key. So essentially what's going to happen here is John doesn't actually need to like say like send money to Alice. Like John sends money to Alice. I don't know, let's say half a Bitcoin to Alice. John doesn't need to like put that into the blockchain. John can just use his private key and unlock his wallet. So it just says like this public key, or yeah, you just use John's public key, sends 0.5 Bitcoin. Here, let me make this bigger. Yeah. Sure. To Alice, essentially, to Alice's public key. And this operation is like accepted because John can send this message by using his private key to confirm that this is actually John doing this transaction. So like this is what shows up on like the Bitcoin blocks essentially. It's just this random gibberish, but this gibberish can be like understood by the blockchain system because um, they know that this public key corresponds to this private key, so that it is actually John sending this transaction. And so you can send money to Alice without actually pronounce like announcing it to everybody that this person right here is Alice, and like this is John. Um, I guess the hard part is John needs to know what Alice's public key is, but like they could do that over some other software essentially. Um, but that's kind of that anonymity part of the blockchain essentially. Um, yeah, that's pretty much like a very, very high level version of the blockchain. It's really hard to explain more about like the security part and other stuff without actually like having a good understanding of like computer science like terms and computer science knowledge, because this idea of the blockchain is like this. It's like chains of transactions, and it's like each transaction, each block stores one transaction. Maybe there's multiple transactions in a block. And let's say this is like block 1 and this is block 2, and it's stored like this. essentially. Um, that's this is what the blockchain is. It's like each block changed together. Um, this concept is really hard to explain without understanding 202 concepts. So, like in CPE 202, you learn this idea of linked lists. Don't know if you guys know about this term, but this term is really important before you can understand what this is, how the blockchain works. But the high level part that I just explained earlier, that's the use case of the blockchain. This is the technicality of how it works. And I've spent like so many years kind of looking into it, and like it's pretty amazing. Like this is like the new internet essentially. Like there's three really big things in tech right now, like VR, AI, and blockchain. And so these three things are like the big money makers if you want to go into like these fields. And I think blockchain is going to be like one of the big ones. But yeah, any questions? I saw that there's a lot of people that came in here. Also, has anyone heard about this new NFT craze? There's this like really big NFT craze recently. You guys can unmute and talk.
Yeah, I was gonna go into that.
Yeah. Also like anyone just like feel free to talk. Like you guys don't have to be muted. But yeah, I will explain this NFT craze. But first of all, I need to explain what NFTs are. So NFTs use blockchain to solve the problem of pirating, or like digital copywriting. So they use blockchain to solve this idea of pirating, because like in this centralized like internet, what's stopping people from just, you know, like making like downloading an MP3 and then just like tossing it on their phone, like without like pretty much if illegally downloading like MP3s from YouTube and then just tossing it on their phone. There's nothing that's blocking that essentially, or like even like downloading full like albums that you should purchase. Um, there's nothing blocking that from today's internet. Well, this NFT thing uses blockchain to solve that problem of like digital copywriting. Um, the way that it works is whenever you create a digital like art, so anything, like it could be anything, it could be like music, like digitally creating music, or digital art, um, like drawings and stuff like that. You can store these like because all of this is just like data. Like for example, like a JPEG, right? That's just data inside of like a file. So like you can take that data and you can encrypt that data. So you can encrypt like a picture, for example, or like music. So what happens is they take like whatever the piece of art is, taking that data, and they compress it essentially, or they hash it into what is known as an NFT. And so this NFT, um, this NFT right here is like a hashed version of the art. So if the data inside of this like original JPEG is like, I don't know, it says 400 by 400 by 400 picture, I don't know, pixel 1 equals black, I don't know, something like that, like dot dot dot. Like the new like hashed version of this data is like, you know, but you the person that created this has what's known as an NFT key. They have this thing known as an NFT key, where the original creator, so let's say the creator has this NFT key, and they can use this NFT key and unlock the NFT back into this original art. So they take the NFT key, essentially. Let me move everything over. Take the NFT. So NFT key, you, I don't know, add it with the NFT. and that produces the original art again, because you can dehash or like unhash it back to this original art essentially using the key. You can like unlock it. So the creator has this key and they can sell this key. So that means that the NFT is like hidden, or it's like maybe they only want to create one digital copy of it, right? Like, because like what's stopping someone from just copying and pasting and that creates like two copies of it? But with this, with this idea of NFTs, you can make like a limited amount of digital copies, like without needing to, or like it makes it possible essentially. Because for example, if you make two copies of this NFT, you can just have two different NFT keys for NFT key for for the first copy and then NFT key for the second copy. So they're like still different essentially. Um, so that kind of solves the idea of copywriting, because even though on the blockchain everybody can see this NFT, it's hashed, so nobody can unlock it unless they own the key. So what the creator can do is, let's say they hold an auction, they can auction it off to buyers. So then they can give these when the buyer buys it, they transfer this NFT key over, like ownership of it, and then now this buyer can unlock this NFT and get the art that they own essentially. But the creator now, because they don't own the key, they can't get the art that they created anymore because they don't own that key. They can't unlock it anymore because they transferred ownership of it. That's kind of how they use blockchain to solve this idea, is like the ownership part. Because blockchain keeps track of who owns what essentially. It's a ledger. It's like it stores like the history of transactions. And so that's why this NFT craze was so big. Like for example, I owned this coin called Harmony. The ticker symbol for this is 1, and I bought this when it was like not even a 1 cent, and now it's worth like 15 cents, which is crazy because of like how big this NFT craze grew. Because everybody wants to hop into this new idea of like solving new problems, um, using this new technology, the idea of copyright, without needing a third party. Because like and in the real world, there's that CC thing to like copyright claim, but that's handled by the copyright system, like the legal system essentially, which means you rely on the legal system to uphold your copyrights. But here you can create it using code essentially. Like it's like there's no third party that you rely on for the copyright. It's just all handled by the system, by that NFT system. That if you don't own the key, you can't unlock that piece of art, or whatever it is. And so that's why blockchain is so amazing, is you can use it for so many different use cases. And this is just one use case. It's just the NFT use case. Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But where do you see it growing? Because like people kind of understand the potential of blockchain.
Hmm.
Do you see how it can grow the crypto or NFT space, or is it just people jumping into crypto and NFT that's growing it?
So like, are you talking about like how like is it just growing because of hype, or is it actually growing because of the technology? Like that is
Yeah,
that kind of right now? I think it's just mostly hype. Like right now, for sure, it's maybe like 80% hype, or maybe 70% hype. Let's say 30% technology. Because people don't really understand the tech behind it. Only like the CS people, essentially. Like actually, like the CS people that can go and look at the code and understand that it's actually working. Most of it is just hype because nobody like realistically like a good majority of people don't understand the apps that they're using. They just know like, oh, I click this button and it does that. But they don't know what happens behind it. Like there's code inside of the whatever that app is that makes it work, but they don't understand that the actual code part. They just understand like you click that button and it does that. So most of it is just hype because they don't actually know if it's actually working. Like for example, that recent Dogecoin thing. that where Dogecoin flew up like, I don't know, like I think it was like 15,000% or something. Dogecoin has no technology. It's just hype. People are just buying it because Elon Musk buys it. That's the only reason why. Dogecoin's not using any technology. It's not using blockchain for anything. Like, because like in the real world, when you're buying stock, right? Like if you're buying Apple, or like if you're buying like Microsoft, right? You're buying it because you believe in Apple's technology. So like this Apple stock is backed by the Apple technology, or like the Microsoft stock is backed by the Microsoft technology. If Microsoft released, like for example, Apple goes up because maybe they released a new iPhone, or like Microsoft goes up because people are starting to use their Azure cloud storage more. But Dogecoin, like even like one, for example, I was using Harmony, um, which is that one coin, because do you use one coin to trade NFTs? So this one coin backs this NFT technology, but Dogecoin has no technology. It's just hype. People just want to buy it because it's cool. That's that new kind of craze now. You buy it because but that's what the cool people do essentially. So I don't recommend really buying Dogecoin. It's really just a scam. Um,
All
yeah,
right. So the hype is basically the redditors on the stock market, right?
for sure.
Whereas
Like,
the
yeah,
actual company doing well.
yeah, essentially, like, because like there is proof. Like I've looked into like the NFT code. Like I've went into their GitHub. I'm not sure if you know what GitHub is, but I go into their
Yeah.
GitHub and I read their code inside of their repository, and it all looks legit. Like it seems like it's working, and like people are using it, and there's no problems with it. The NFT craze was like 2 months ago, and like it's still going up. Like people are still using it, and it's not like there's nothing, like there's no security flaws, there's no hackings or anything, there's no like it seems like it's working. So like the technology part, it is working too. I mean, there's many use cases for blockchain. There's smart contract, which is one of the big ones that happened like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that like kind of like it revolutionized blockchain. um that's from Ethereum. And then there's like shoot and then there's the idea of uh, NFT. That's from like Harmony. There's a bunch of other use cases. There's like decentralized applications, dApps, and that's from like things like Neos or Neo, EOS, Cardano, ADA. I don't know if you guys know of ADA. um there's things like decentralized finance, so like DeFi. um I don't really know any DeFi coins, but I know there was a really big DeFi like craze recently. But like there's so many use cases for blockchain. Like these technologies right here, they use the blockchain technology to make it happen. But there's bound to be more use cases. Like NFT, literally someone just wrote a research paper about it, and they just started coding it like a couple months ago, and now it blew up like 100,000% essentially. And it works. Like it's not just like hype, but you have to understand why it works to really use it essentially correctly. But yeah.
It's like researching on either like Ethereum or like Harmony, just what they're doing with it, right?
Yeah, essentially. Like Ethereum is really stable. They've only crashed once, in 2017. And that was because like there were so many users that their system just like overloaded and crashed. But since then they've upgraded and like upscaled their system to handle more users. But I mean that kind of proves the hype around it, is like there were so many users that Ethereum crashed for like an hour. But this Ethereum does this thing called smart contracting, and it's really cool. Um, like a good example of smart contracting is like being like an employer and an employee kind of system essentially. Like when you work for an employer, so let's say this is like me, Sullivan, and this summer I'm going to be working in LinkedIn. So recently I just started signing a bunch of contracts with a third party called like HireRight. So in the real world, like right now, you use these third party contractors to make sure that the contracts are upheld essentially. That means like LinkedIn doesn't actually like I'm not like LinkedIn doesn't own the contracts. I'm signing the contracts with LinkedIn, but we're like two parties basically agreeing, and we're relying on this third party called HireRight to essentially make sure that LinkedIn is doing what they're supposed to do, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Like what I mean by that is like in this like contract, it's like if Sullivan works, you know, pay Sullivan money. Because like if I work and LinkedIn doesn't pay me money, I can still hire right, and then hire right can like tell LinkedIn to pay me, and if LinkedIn doesn't pay me, then like they can fine LinkedIn essentially, or like I can fine LinkedIn, and hire right make sure that this happens. Or like if I don't work, if Sullivan doesn't work, LinkedIn has the right to fire Sullivan. Like that's kind of like in part of this contract too. And hire right, they handle that legal stuff because they're the third party that looks over that contract to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do and LinkedIn's doing what LinkedIn's supposed to do. But that relies on this third party, and it's centralized to the third party. That's that idea of centralization again, is that if LinkedIn, if they do some really shady stuff and like LinkedIn and HireRight can work together. Maybe like LinkedIn pays HireRight to like work against me, and they don't pay me whatever I deserve, and HireRight can say, "Oh, LinkedIn's right because LinkedIn paid HireRight or something." I'm not saying that this happens, but like I'm just saying like this could happen. I mean, um, it would be totally like legal, or it would be illegal into terms of like LinkedIn bribing HireRight, but it would be quote unquote centralized and like legal to do this essentially, um, to work against me essentially. So you're depending on these third parties to be fair and to actually uphold your contracts correctly. But this idea of smart contracting, it removes that third party. It removes third party, and it essentially decentralizes contracting. And a really good example of this is I'm working on this startup right now. It's called NovaPay, and I started it up with three other friends. So, and we're using Ethereum smart contract to pay us, to pay ourselves, because the thing is we got this we got $10,000 of funding from seed funding from the Cal Poly Accelerator. And so essentially what we were doing to like motivate ourselves was we were paying ourselves like 200 to 250 a month essentially. But all of this went to one person essentially. Like one person claimed it into their bank account, and they're we it's fine because like we're friends, and so I guess we could just trust each other. But essentially like that person could just not pay us essentially. Friend one, friend. Here, let me remove this. So let me set this up, and then I will kind of explain how it works. Friend two, friend three. So what happened was in this startup that we had, we got the seed funding, and then friend one just claimed all 10,000. And in the normal world, the way that it works is they put it into, or like the friend one just pays me, pays friend two and pays friend three and pays themselves. Let's draw it like this. They pay themselves like 200, let's say 250 every month, right? So we're relying on friend one to like pay us. And friend one doesn't have to pay us. I mean, they can just take all the money for themselves and run. But and that's kind of what's happening in the real world. If we were to start a startup like that, this is kind of how it would work, because it would be like an LLC, and they don't have to pay us essentially, unless it's like under a contract. But because we're just kind of friends when we trust each other, this system could work. But instead, what we did was we used smart contracting, where we wrote code. So smart contract is just code. So we wrote code inside of a smart contract that said, um, every month, if um, if if day equals like the first of the month, um, pay Sullivan, and then like for example, pay friend one, pay friend two, etc. Uh, pay friend one, pay friend two, and pay friend three. And so the way that this works is the $10,000 is owned by the smart contract. So nobody owns it, but at the same time, everybody owns it. So nobody owns it because nobody owns a smart contract. It's owned by the people that are inside of the smart contract. So, for example, let's say Sullivan is inside of the smart contract, friend one is inside of the smart contract, um, and like friend two and friend three. So basically, these people have the right to they're in the smart contract, but they don't own the smart contract. And so instead, the 250 is paid automatically by the system. Like nobody can go into the smart contract and just take $10,000. The smart contracts just runs every month on the first of each month and just runs this code right here. If that makes sense, because you guys have been coding, so I'm sure you guys can kind of see this high level version of code. Like every month, if the day is one, pay Sullivan and then pay friend one and then pay friend two and three. And all of this is just executed automatically every month. There's no one executing it, just automatically does it because it's a smart contract. And so the way that it works now is like the smart contract is not owned by anyone. Instead, it's just, we have friend one and friend two and friend three and Sully, and the way that it works is it just automatically like pays us. That's how it works. So there's no third party that we need to trust. It's just code running. So like the smart contract is just code that runs that we all wrote together. Like we all wrote this code together. So we can all trust it and like put the money into it because we all wrote it together. So that's the up part of smart contract is there's no middleman anymore. It's just self-executing code, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And basically, there's no funny business in code.
Right, right. And so that's why it's like really nice is because like kind of that using that LinkedIn example earlier, I was relying on higher right to like handle the contract and not like be biased on one side. Like if they were biased towards like LinkedIn, then they would they would just take LinkedIn's side and potentially breach the contract, but like do it in a quote unquote like biasy way, but without like being illegal, but still be biased towards the LinkedIn. And like that's the down part about like centralized like things is things like that could happen is the thing. So this removes that third party. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is smart contract is another use case of blockchain to solve
Mhm.
it's to decentralize contracting, right? Like how NFT was using the blockchain to solve copyrights. So smart contract solves third party and contracting. Yeah, so blockchain is really cool. Like you can use blockchain for so many different purposes that it's like crazy. Like it's people don't understand how it works. People are starting to understand it more now because of the hype, but like realistically, a lot of people still don't understand the underlying technology and like how everything runs.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's growing crazy now, huh?
For sure.
Since
Yeah. Like Bitcoin went up, I think 20,000% in the matter of
yeah,
like not even a year, maybe like 6 months.
yeah,
Yeah. Because people
and
started I think it's because people started to understand blockchain more and like that it's just like that's kind of where I said like hype 70%. You know, people are using like Bitcoin as a means of investing. I don't really agree with that. I do it because of because of the technology. Like I invest into cryptocurrencies where they have technology that I believe in. So like I
mhm,
believe in Bitcoin, so that's why I invest in Bitcoins. Like I am this
yeah,
part of this 30% that believe in the tech. A lot of people are just doing it because they want to make money. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
No, I
the
think
tech
that's
is
like
crazy, you know.
mhm. Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's 90% of people are just putting it in because of the hype.
For sure, like they're just doing it because they want to make money. Like I know friends that don't even know what Bitcoin is, but like some of my friends have made like tens of thousands of dollars just investing. They're just investing into Bitcoin without any knowledge of how it works. And it's
Yeah,
like at the same time, it's like, sure, you can hop on because of the hype train, but it's like, I think you should at least understand what blockchain is.
yeah, and I think that's what excites me is like once people start understanding it and they fully get that, oh, this is like because I kind of see how blockchain can take away like they're talking about decentralizing currency
Right.
instead of the government owning the money, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Because like think
Yeah,
about it. Like right now, like you're centralized to your bank, right? Like
yeah,
even in so today's payment system, so like blockchain, like Bitcoin solves this payment system.
hmm,
So in today's payment system, normally if you're not paying in cash, it's you, your bank, and then like the store, right? So it's like
yeah,
you, your bank, and then the store. And when you're putting your money into the bank, you don't know if the bank can get hacked, or you don't know if like because like isn't there this rule where like if your bank like if the bank gets hacked, they can only store like they can only give you back like you're insured like 250K or something like that.
yeah. Whatever you're insured.
Yeah, yeah. And so imagine if you had $1 million in your bank and then the bank gets hacked and then now you only have 250K. Like you just lost 750K, right? So
Yeah,
it's
well,
centralized to the bank. And
hmm,
and so like this is today's payment system. Like think about it. But using Bitcoin, all of your money is just in your wallet. This idea of like a Bitcoin wallet, and nobody can touch it but you because you're the only one that owns the private key to that to unlock that wallet. So this Bitcoin technology solves the payment system,
yeah,
which is why it's like revolutionary.
and the
But
security system.
exactly, yeah, it's really secure and it's it's anonymous, right? Like that's the other thing. It's anonymous,
Mhm.
it's secure, decentralized. And so that decentralized part solves the payment centralization thing. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. All right,
Yeah.
yeah, because I've been researching it and I was thinking, should I go in? But I don't understand it yet.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. But this is a very high level view of it. Like if you wanted to
mhm.
get even more in depth, I can give you this website. I'll post it onto, I don't know, I guess off topic and memes. Um, Anders blockchain. So there's this demo called Anders blockchain, and you can kind of get a better understanding of how blockchain works. It goes into a lower level version of blockchain, kind of explaining the idea of like hashing, the idea of like um, immutable linking, essentially. So like why use a linked list to represent this data? Like to
Mhm.
store the history of the blockchain, because like essentially blockchain is just a bunch of data that's linked together to store a history, because like um every block is 10 minutes essentially. So like if block 1 was like
Yeah.
440, then block 2 is like 450. And it stores 10 minutes worth of transactions in here. And
Mhm.
so block 2's transactions are based on block 1's transaction, and it explains that concept essentially. Yeah, essentially. So I recommend going there if you're really interested in blockchain. But also like
Mhm.
reach out to me if you want to know more about like the nitty-gritty, like lower level stuff, because like I really love blockchain, and I love just talking about it. It's something I want to do in the future. Like I've made my
Mhm.
own cryptocurrency before. And it's definitely hard to get it like off the ground running, because like it's not regulated, or like at least there's no regulations yet for like cryptocurrencies and like launching a cryptocurrency and like getting hype for the cryptocurrency, because there's
Yeah.
a bunch of like scam coins where it's just like a scheme essentially, where people are just starting the coin and then getting people to buy into the coin, and then they just take the money and run. So
Yeah,
there's
because of all the hype going on. Huh?
For sure, yeah, and like because there's no regulations, it's like people can just do that essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty going on. Oh, for sure. Keep looking into it. But yeah, thanks for the detailed explanation, dude.
yeah, no
Really helped.
problem. It was really fun, honestly.
Yeah, I had fun learning about it too.
Yeah, but definitely feel free to keep reaching out to me if you have any more questions. So.
Yeah, for sure.